Hi there, it's Tom from Uprate, and I just wanted to give you a quick demo of some of the recent changes that we've made to the Uprate system. So this is a release we're doing at the end of the year just to push out some of the improvements we've been working on for the past couple of months. The first one, relatively small change, but we've made it a lot easier to input email addresses across the app. So this is a request from one of our customers. Every time you're inputting an email address in the system, what we'll do is we'll give you a drop down with what we call autocomplete results. So any email address you've typed into the system elsewhere or previously, you'll have access through this list here. So if I start typing John Doe, you'll see that it's filtered the list and now it's showing me all the email addresses that could potentially match to what I've just typed in. So you can click on that and then put John Doe as the name. And it just makes it a lot quicker and easier for me to sort of fill in the form and get the email addresses correct. So it's a relatively small change, but that's live now. You can use all of these features today. So the next one I would highlight would be if I go into one of my hire agreements, I've got one drafted here. You'll see that I filled out a load of data already. You'll see there's a new input at the bottom here, which is include subtotal on hire agreement. So what this does is gives you the ability to toggle the total and the VAT on or off for your customers. So if it's unchecked, then you can still see the total, but nothing will show when your customer actually gets the hire agreement. If we have a look at what that looks like, you'll see some other changes to how it looks, which I'll run through in a minute, but you see there's no subtotal here. If I now tick that on, I'll leave it as 20%, although you can change the VAT amount if you want to 0 or 5. I'll leave it like that. If I now refresh the page, you'll see that now the subtotal and the VAT will drop through for your customer. So yeah, we're giving you the option as to whether or not you want to include that on the hire agreement. And again, that's also now live. You'll notice there's some bigger updates to the general look and feel of this document as well. So we've had some feedback pretty consistently that people want it to look a bit more like an actual document. So we've made some changes to sort of the overall styling and fonts and layout just to try and make it a bit more sort of formal document-like. If I go print, you'll see that it also looks better now when you're printing it out or you're downloading it as a PDF. So yeah, we've pulled out the kind of signature aspect onto the left here, which is the box we're looking at there. And then the hire agreement itself just now looks a bit more formal. And then you'll see when I'm printing it out, that also applies to the printout. So it looks a bit more like a sort of standard document. So if I cancel that, I'll just go back. So yeah, quite a big update to the hire agreement flow. Um, Another update we've made, so if I find a booking, if I book somebody onto a contract, I'll just do that quickly here. If I book John onto a contract and I go into the single week view, we've had feedback that people wanted it to be a bit easier to get additional resources onto these bookings. So if I book John on to this job, 200 Baker Street, we've been told that it could be a bit easier to, if I now want to add a crane or another labor resource to this job, it could be a bit easier. So we've made an update. If I left click on this here and open this pop-up where I can edit, obviously John Doe's scheduled dates, you'll see that you've now got an add additional resources button down here. So if I click on that and go asset, it's going to bring in my list of cranes that I've got. If I choose the LTR 1100, and then if I go, if I let's just put them on for the same days and then click save, you'll see that the crane has now booked in. Um, and yeah, it just makes it a lot quicker and easier for you to get additional sort of resources onto the jobs. So if all you've booked in is the crane and then, a week later you now want to book in the labor, it just makes it a lot easier for you to do that. So that's a fairly sort of big update that we've got. Another one, I think you might have seen it there, as you're sort of using the schedulers and you're adding lots of resources, at some time you're going to get one that isn't needed anymore. So, if we've got all these cranes here and I've removed the crane from my scheduler, that's something you've been able to do for a while. But if I now want to bring that crane back, say we sort of rented it out long term to somebody else and we wanted it off the list, but now it's coming back and it's available, what we've done is we've given you the ability to add things back in. So if you click on add row, I then come here, You'll see that DMAG that I just removed. I think it was this one, the CN003. The DMAG's in the list, and I can click on that, and it will bring it back into the scheduler for me. So yeah, you can remove them, but then it just makes it easy to see who have I had on here before, and then bring them back in if I need to. So this is quite helpful if you've worked with people in the past, they've moved on, but you're struggling to find somebody for a job, and you just want to look through sort of your reserves or your backup people that you might want to call on to sort of do the job for you. So yeah, you can now bring people back. Another improvement, we've improved the search feature. So previously, if I came in here and I searched for a contract name, all I would get back is the customer that owns that contract, and I would have to click through. If I now go, if I search for that contract that's on display there, so 200 Baker Street, you'll see that the list is updated, and I can still click into Balfour Beatty, but I can see here that they've actually got a 200 Baker Street contract. So you can search by contract number, contract name, or site address. It will return you results like this. So it's just a bit easier to sort of navigate and find the thing that you're looking for. So if I click on that, it's then going to take me through to the contract page for this contract. So yeah, another sort of relatively small improvement, but just helps use the system, helps sort of speed things up a bit. And then finally, we've introduced what we're calling contract categories. So we're going to be working with anyone who's already using the system to choose. Basically, when you look at the scheduler and you've got these, as we call them, assignment stickers, we've had people ask that they want to be able to color these stickers based on their own sort of groupings or their own categories. So I'll show you what I mean. If I click on this category bit here at the bottom, if you see I hover at the bottom there, plus category, click on that, you'll see that I've already loaded in some categories for this sort of test account. So we've loaded in verbally agreed, quote sent, contract signed, or cancelled. So if I say this job is verbally agreed, you're going to see that it blocks in with the sort of amber or yellow color. If I change it now to quote sent, it's going to be green. Contract signed, it's going to be blue. And then cancelled, it's going to be pink. So yeah, it's quite an open feature that you can tell us what categories you want to use, and then you can really easily jump between them on the scheduler just to keep track of, if you've got a lot of bookings on there, but some of them are provisional, they're not necessarily going ahead, you just wanted them on the books. It just means you can call them out really clearly, and then when you're looking at your scheduler, you can get that overview. So yeah, you can change the category through here. I can clear it, get rid of the category altogether. You can also do it from the contract page. So if I go all contracts for BT 200 Baker Street, you'll see that there's a bit now at the top here with category. I can change it from all those categories that I just showed you there are still here as well. So verbally agreed, quote sent, contract signed, and cancelled. I can change it and then just save that. And you see it's updated in the background there. So that's one change that we've made to the sort of sticker. This button at the top here, the little paint drop, if you click that, that's just going to jump between what we used to do, which was the whole sticker was colored based on the customer color. So Balfour BT here is yellow. If I go to you can see that when we set up the customer, we set up the customer colors to be yellow and then black text. So that's the customer color. If I click the little paint drop, it's now going by the category color instead. So you can toggle between the two really easily. Just means if you want to also use the customer color as some kind of sort of additional information, you can do so. So, if you want to put cash account customers in a certain color, you can do that, and then you've still got access to it and visibility. Another thing we've changed. So if I open this contract up, you'll see there's this input at the bottom here, information for workforce. This bit isn't new, but if I add something here, so Crane needs to leave the yard at 9 a.m. latest. Please ensure maps are loaded by 30. So just an example, and I save that. Previously, all we did was we put that information here in the assignment message. So if you want to send it out to your drivers or your labor, you can do that. But you'll see that we're now adding it to the sticker itself. So any information that you want a bit more sort of prominent and front and center, you can stick into that information for workforce section, and then it will show up on the sticker whenever you look at the scheduler. So, all your information to drive your day-to-day kind of operations can just be really made a bit more apparent and easy to read. And if I now, if you want a lot of data in there, so if I'm just going to copy and paste this just to make it a bit longer, a big paragraph of text in. By default, it's going to be one line, but if you see this new button up here, this little toggle next to the paint drop, if I click that, you'll see that now you get 4 lines for the information for workforce. So if you want to put a lot of information about the job onto that input, you can do, and then you can still have access to it whenever you're looking at the scheduler. And then you can just sort of toggle between the two just to make it a bit smaller or bigger as you need to. I think that was everything. So yeah, quite a few changes that have come through. We're working through the list basically of feedback that we've had from our first kind of early users. So yeah, I would expect more to come in the new year. But otherwise, have a great Christmas and thanks for using Uprate.